we're continuing our lecture with the Negro and the Negro artist and the racial mountain. Okay, yes, we're going to continue talking about what culture recognizes as good as bad, but as you saw right now, that was my 8-year-old. Okay, I was going to use him as an example of how criticizing one's background or culture is dangerous. And then he fell asleep because it's 11:30 at night and he's really tired. So he tried. Maybe next time we'll get him to wake up and to stay awake. But he really looks comfortable, y'all. It's really late. All right, so we are on page 2101. Okay, again, how filled with rage are we to read that part where where this artist was told, well, maybe your mother shouldn't show up because she doesn't have an evening gown. That's just rage. That got me so full of rage. I was so angry when I saw that. Okay, but that's something that the Negro artists were faced with. And if we look at the next page, okay. This is what they're told. Oh, be respectable. Write about nice people. Show how good we are, say the Negroes. Be stereotyped. Don't go too far. Don't shatter illusions about you. Don't amuse us too seriously. We will pay you, say the whites. Okay. And that's interesting, right? Be respectful. Write about nice people. Toni Morrison. I can tell you, Toni Morrison wrote about good people, but also wrote about the really bad portions of life. My favorite book by Toni Morrison is The Bluest Eye, and she talks about rape within the African American community, and she actually has a portion of her book, and I remember this greatly, dedicated to the rapist, and what kind of a life the rapist had, and how his life affected his future actions. Is Toni Morrison excusing the rape? Absolutely not, but she gives attention to that. Okay, when Dr. Maya Angelou in I Know by the Cage Bird Sings talks about the rape that she suffered as a child, okay, they would have said, please don't write that. That's something people don't need to write about. Write about the nice things. Write about your wonderful aunties or your wonderful grandmother. And Toni Morrison and Maya Angelou would have said, no, that's not our life. Our life was hard. Okay, so you see how Langston Hughes is quite angry and saying, no, okay, this is not the way we're going to write. But this is the mountain that he says that the Negro writer has to overcome. He has to overcome all of these obstacles to finally become famous. Okay, the first full paragraph on 2102, and he talks about music, right? Our folk music, having achieved worldwide fame, offers itself to the genius of the great individual American composer who is to come. And within the next decade, I expect to see the work of a growing school of colored artists who paint and model the beauty of dark faces and create with new technique the expressions of their own soul world. And the Negro dancers who will dance like flame, and the singers who will continue to carry our songs to all who will listen. They will be with us even in greater numbers tomorrow. And he's right. Okay, we have African American, the writers, the artists, the singers, the dancers. We have them come up, and we're having more and more of them, right? And if we replace African American with Latinos, we have the Latinos and Latinx writers coming up, right? The singers, the writers, the dancers, the artists. We have that all coming up. And what he's saying here is saying, this is not taking away from America. This is adding to America. Okay, this is what Langston Hughes would say to you. Okay, nobody's taking anything away from you. We're adding to you. Okay, please don't think that anyone's culture is being taken away at this point. Okay, let's look to the very bottom of this, page 2102. Okay. Jazz, to me, is one of the most inherent expressions of Negro life in America. The eternal tom-tom beating in the Negro soul, the tom-tom of revolt against weariness in a white world, a world of subway trains and work, the tom-tom of joy and laughter and pain swallowed in a smile. Yet in Philadelphia, the club woman is ashamed to say that her race created it, and she does not like me to write about it. The subconscious white is best runs through her mind. Years of study under white teachers, a lifetime of white books, pictures, and papers, of white manners, morals, and Puritan standards made her dislike the spirituals. And now she turns her nose up at jazz and all its manifestations. Likewise, almost everything else distinctly racial. She doesn't care for the Wynald Rice portraits of Negroes because they are too Negro. She doesn't want a true picture of herself from anybody. She wants the artist to flatter her, to make The white world believe that all Negroes are smug and you're as white as soul as she wants to be. But to my mind, it is the duty of the younger Negro artist, if he accepts any duties at all from outsiders, to change through the force of his work the old whispering, I want to be white, hidden, and the aspirations to his people, to why should I want to be white? I am Negro and beautiful. Okay? And he wants, what Langston Hughes wants the artist to do is he wants them to fight back. He says, I'm not going to be your Negro. I'm going to be my own Negro. And I have something to tell you all about something that's very interesting here. A few years ago, when France won the World Cup, when they won the World Cup in Russia, which England should have won, but whatever. We're not going to talk about that. Trevor Noah came out, the guy who is the host of The Daily Show. He comes out and he says, Africa won the World Cup, not France. Africa won it. Because the majority of the players on the French team are from African descent. Okay, he said that. The diplomat from France comes out and just says that's not true. The French won it. You have to apologize. Trevor Noah comes back and says no, the Africans won it. And he goes on and says, you all, and he means the French. Okay, he says you all only want the Africans to be citizens when it is convenient for you. Okay, if someone from African descent or from an francophone African country does something great, then yes, of course, he's French. Just like the French football players, soccer players, whatever. But if they do something bad, oh no, they're not us. Okay, Langston Hughes is saying something similar, right? He's saying don't be what they want you to be what you want to be. Okay, if you want to do jazz, you do jazz. If you want to write about slave narratives, then you do that. Okay, but don't let anyone tell you what you should do or what a real artist is. Okay, and if we look at the very bottom of 2103, and this is where this portion ends, it says, we younger artists who create and now intend to express our individual dark-skinned selves without fear or shame. If white people are pleased, we are glad. If they are not, it doesn't matter. We know we are beautiful and ugly too. The tom-tom cries and the tom-tom laughs. If colored people are pleased, we are glad. If not, their displeasure doesn't matter either. We build our temples for tomorrow, strong as we know how, and we stand on top of mountains, free within ourselves. Okay, so what he's saying, don't expect others to provide you freedom. You have to take it. You have to make it new, and you have to work it. Okay, and that's the brilliance here of Langston Hughes. He's telling the artist, this isn't going to be easy. Okay, it's not going to be easy. A lot of times it's not going to be fun, but it's going to be worth it. Right? From here, you'd think, all right, we have jazz. We're bringing in what we call outsiders or whatever to listen to jazz, to listen to the poetry, to see the dancers. It's going to be great, right? And then you get when the Negro was in vogue. Okay, because this portion of the class is called the Harlem Renaissance. Harlem was supposed to be the Renaissance. Negroes, African Americans, were supposed to be there. They could live there. They could work together, make art, make music, make literature. It was going to be great. But the Promised Land didn't quite work out. And I want you all to get to 2104. Okay, Langston Hughes has a lot to say here, but I'm only going to pick out a little bit that is relevant to our conversation, because this is going to be the longest lecture. Alright, so if we look at 2104. Okay. Put down the 1920s for the rise of Roland Hayes, who packed Carnegie Hall, the rise of Paul Robeson in New York and London, of Florence Mills over 2 continents, of Rose McClellan in Broadway parts that never measured up to her, the booming voice of Bessie Smith, the low moan of Clara on thousands of records, the rise of the grand comedian of song, Ethel Walters singing, Charlie's elected now, he's in for sure. Put down the 1920s for Louis Armstrong and Gladys Bentley and Josephine Baker. Okay, these are all very famous African American artists. You probably recognize one or two of them. You actually Google them, they're great. White people began to come to Harlem in droves. Great, right? Suddenly, African American music, it is becoming vogue. It's becoming the cause célèbre. For several years, they packed the expensive Cotton Club on Lenox Avenue. The Cotton Club on Lenox Avenue. It's called the Cotton Club, guys. Come on. But I was never there because the Cotton Club was a Jim Crow club for gangsters and many whites. They were not cordial to Negro patronage unless you were a celebrity like Bojangles. Look up who Bojangles is. So Harlem Negroes did not like the Cotton Club and never appreciated its Jim Crow policy in the very heart of their dark community. Nor did ordinary Negroes like the growing influx of whites toward Harlem after sundown, flooding the little cabarets and bars where formerly only colored people sang and laughed, and where now the strangers were given the best ringside tables to sit and stare at the Negro customers like amusing animals in a zoo. This paragraph packs an amazing punch, doesn't it? Okay, so first off we have gentrification, right? Okay, the rent is too damn high, everything's going up, alright. But when he says the white people came to the Cotton Club in Harlem, they call it the Cotton Club, y'all, it's called the Cotton Club. I mean, that blew my mind. But the African Americans weren't there, right? You couldn't go into that club. And if they would go to other clubs, to the little cabarets, what is Langston Hughes says? They would stare at the Negro customers like amusing animals in a zoo. Remember that we talked about this? I don't remember what lecture it was, but remember we talked about how different people from different races were placed in human zoos on tour all over the United States and Europe? Yeah, that's happening. Okay, and it is a very uncomfortable position to be in when someone is sitting there minding their own business and suddenly half of the restaurant is staring at them. Okay, just because of the color of their skin. Okay, that's something that's not right. But Hughes is saying this happened in Harlem. This happened in the middle of what was supposed to be the great renaissance of African American artists. Okay? The Negroes said, we can't go downtown and sit and stare at you in your clubs. You won't even let us in our clubs. He's like, there's segregation. This isn't supposed to be the way it's supposed to be. Okay, we're supposed to be all together. Some of the owners of Harlem clubs, delighted at the flood of white patronage, made the grievous error of barring their own race after the manner of the famous Cotton Club. Remember, the oppressors become the oppressees. Okay, it's this horrible cycle. But most of them quickly lost business and folded up because they failed to realize that a large part of the Harlem attraction for downtown New Yorkers lay in simply watching the colored customers amuse themselves. And the smaller clubs, of course, had no big floor shows or name like the Cotton Club, where Duke Ellington usually held forth. So without black patronage, they were not amusing at all. Okay, so you see the dream deferred. Okay, the dream didn't quite work out the way it was supposed to work out. Right, so in 2105, the 20s are gone and lots of fine things in Harlem nightlife had disappeared like snow in the sun, since it became utterly commercial, planned for downtown tourist trade and therefore dull. Right, so they got the attention they wanted, but not in the way they wanted it. Okay, because suddenly it's not art anymore, it's something that happened, it's being forced. Some critics say that what happened to certain Negro writers. Some critics say that is what happened to certain Negro writers. That they ceased to write to amuse themselves and began to write to amuse and entertain white people, and in so doing, so distorted and overcolored their material, and left out a great many things they thought would offend their American brothers of a lighter complexion. Okay, so there's a change. Now we do have the writers that the Hughes wanted, right? Except that their writing style is changing. So it didn't work out quite the way they thought it was going to work out. I'm going to show you a couple of things right here. 2106. This was up. Okay. Let's look at the top right here. 2106 at the top of the page. It was a period when at least one charming colored chorus girl, amber enough to pass for Latin American, was living in a penthouse with all her bills paid by a gentleman whose name was Banker's Magic on Wall Street. It was a period where every season there was at least one hit play on Broadway acting with a Negro cast, and when books by Negro authors were being published with much greater frequency and much more publicity than ever before or since in history. There's a note to that, okay? I'm going to tell you something very funny about that right now. It was a period where white writers wrote about Negroes more successfully, commercially speaking, than Negroes about themselves. It was a period, God help us, that Ethel Barrymore played blackface in Scarlett's Sister Mary. Right? So it's awesome, okay, then blackface. It was a period when the Negro was in vogue. Okay. He uses the word vogue. I'll use when it was cause célèbre, when it was something that was, it's in, right? It's a new style. It's something that we're gonna try. It's new. It's great. You all know I have lupus, right? So I don't mind talking about it. Okay, I'll talk about it. Great, whatever. I mean, people ask me questions about it. It's my job to educate, I feel. But one of the most frustrating questions that I get right now, and it reminded me of this when the Negro was in vogue, is when Selena Gomez, I think that's her name, right, Jess? Selena Gomez? Yes. Selena Gomez announced she had lupus and she needed a kidney transplant. Suddenly, all attention went to her. When Lady Gaga announced that she had like a form of lupus, all the attention goes to her. And you know what people like me are told? Well, Lady Gaga can go do concerts. Why can't you get out of bed? Well, Selena Gomez can go off and do little music videos. Why can't you do this? Okay, well, I get that's the cause célèbre right now, and I guess it's in vogue and everything, but it's not that easy, okay? They have millions of dollars and dozens of people helping them out. I don't have that, okay? Obviously, I'm not rich. That's the problem with the Negro being in vogue, right? That suddenly it's something that's hip, it's cool, it's cute. We're going to pay attention to it. But then it sort of waters down the message, okay? He continues, I was there. I had a swell time while it lasted, but I thought it wouldn't last long. Remember, the vogue for things Russians, this season of the show Histoire, first came to town, okay? Things in vogue don't really last. For how could a large, enthusiastic number of people be crazy about Negroes forever? But some Harmelites thought that the millennium had come. They thought that the race problem had at last been solved through art plus Gladys Bentley. Wow, that'd be great, wouldn't it? They were sure that the new Negro could lead a new life from then on in greener pastures of tolerance created by County Cullen, Ethel Waters, Claude McKay, Duke Ellington, Bojangles, and Alan Locke. I don't know that what made any Negroes think that, except that they were mostly intellectuals doing the thinking. The ordinary Negroes hadn't heard of the Negro Renaissance, and if they had, it hadn't raised their wages any. And as for the white folks in the speakeasies and nightclubs in Harlem, well, maybe a colored man could find some place to have a drink that the tourists hadn't discovered, right? So it fell apart. Okay? And you'll see these, you see the little notes right here, the little party notes, right? Wow, the first one, we got yellow girls, we got black and tan, will you have a good time? Yeah, man, socialist party, right? It's 147th West 140th Street. You have all these little parties, right? These little cards where the parties used to go. 2109, after you've seen the little party cards. Almost every Saturday when I was in Harlem, I went to a house rent party. I wrote lots of poems about house rent parties and ate there, many a fried fish and pig's foot with liquid refreshments on the side. I met ladies' maids and truck drivers, laundry workers and shoeshine boys, seamstresses and porters. I can still hear their laughter in my ears, hear the soft music, and feel the floor shaking as the dancers danced. And he would tell you that that was the real Renaissance. It wasn't these very flashy artists in the Cotton Club on Lenox Avenue. It was this hanging around people and drinking and eating fried fish and pig's foot. Listen to that. Why do you think that eating fried fish and pig's foot was so weird, was so different, was almost weird? I hate to use that word, but why? Okay, if you can come up with a discussion about that, that would be interesting. Why does he make that a point? Okay, so that too, Hughes, is the real Renaissance. This is what we're supposed to do, not this flashy cause célèbre at the beginning. Okay, so it kind of worked, sort of worked. Not as what he wanted, though. All right. Let's see. We are to read I didn't forget I too. Okay, so we're to read I too if we must die American and lynching. Let's see. You know what? Let's look at I too. Okay. I like Langston Hughes' poetry because Langston Hughes poets, the poetry's very good and it's hopeful. Let's look at I too at page 2087. I too. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. So, we talked about segregation and the horrible loss of segregation, this whole separate but equal doctrine that we knew it was never equal. That was never an equal doctrine to begin with. Unfortunately, segregation was an integral part of America, and it's something that we have to face up. And Langston Hughes says, yeah, I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Okay, so Langston Hughes is saying, and others would disagree, right? Hey, you know what? Okay, yeah, I'm in segregation. Okay, but in spite, of this ill treatment, I'm gonna grow strong, right? I laugh, I eat well, and I grow strong. So he's saying, don't let them put you down. Yes, they're treating you badly, but learn from it, great from it. Okay, and I don't think I mentioned the last lecture of this, but my psychiatrist tells me that bad things are going to happen to you. Okay, my psychiatrist, as he says, life is shit. Bad things are going to happen to you, but the way you act and what you take from those experiences are what makes you human. Okay, and Langston Hughes is saying that he's like, you know what, my life is crap. I have to eat in the kitchen, but I laugh and I eat well. Okay, and he's learning from it, right? It's building his character so that tomorrow, when he is at the table when company comes, nobody will tell him, eat in the kitchen then, because it's changing. Change is coming somehow. Okay, change is going to come. Things cannot be bad forever. Change is coming. Okay, then, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. Remember, he says that black is beautiful, the Negro is beautiful, and ugly, but beautiful. Okay. Why will they be ashamed? Will they be ashamed of how they treated him? Will they be ashamed because he is beautiful? Okay, that's something to discuss, right? Why are they going to be ashamed? And he ends up, I too am America. Again, the idea of this identity of what does it take to be American. And Langston Hughes is saying, we're going to eat at the table together. That is, I am American. And I love this poem because it's deceptively simple. It's very short, but it's something, it brings up a lot of emotions in people, especially the beginning, right? Hey, you may want to put me down, but I'll come right back up. Hey, remember that line when we get to Maya Angelou. I'm promising so much right now. So much. Alright, but that is a very, very beautiful poem. Alright, so I'm telling Claude McKay. What are we in 2160? Claude McKay is just like T.S. Eliot. We study him in American literature, we study him in British literature. Okay? So I've actually taught him in both, and I get a kick of teaching him in American literature. Let's start, why don't we start with the lynching on 2162. How much time?
4.
Thank you. Let's start with the lynching. I'm going to read this and then I'll start discussing in the next video, okay? Because this is a very powerful poem. 2162. His spirit is smoke ascended to high heaven. His father, by the cruelest way of pain, had bid him to his bosom once again. The awful sin remained still unforgiven. All night a bright and solitary star, perchance the one that ever guided him, yet gave him up at last to fate's wild whim, hung pitifully over the swinging char. Day dawned, and soon the mixed crowds came to view. the ghastly body swaying in the sun. The women thronged to look, but never a one showed sorrow in her eyes of steely blue. And the little lads, lynchers that they would be, danced around the dreadful thing in fiendish glee. Okay, I'm gonna stop the video right now. I want y'all to reread this and pay attention to the words that McKay uses. Okay, his rhetoric. We're gonna talk about it right now.